Why do we keep seeing so many mass shootings in the United States over the past several years? Do people really, genuinely want the answer? I get the impression that they don't. Perhaps that's because the real answer leads us into territory that's not very politically correct and not very comfortable to look at, so people prefer to look elsewhere. It's kind of like the story of a drunk man who's searching for something underneath a streetlight. A policeman approaches and asks him what he's looking for, and he says he's looking for his house keys. The police ask the drunk man where he was standing when he dropped them, and the drunk man points to the other side of the street. "Well, why aren't you looking over there then?" the policeman asks. "Because there's more light over here," the drunk man replies. Most Americans seem to be looking for a convenient answer, one that matches their politics and doesn't put them in a position where they might have to question their own part in the problem. Could it be that this tendency to avoid reality, to look for a quick fix instead, is actually part of the reason we're here in the first place? Over the past 20 years, the use of antidepressant medication has skyrocketed, rising by almost 400% since 1988. Today, 1 in 10 Americans are on antidepressants. The majority of these antidepressants are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, also known as SSRIs. Some of the most popular SSRI medications are Prozac and Zoloft. In December of 2011, the FDA released a study showing a direct link between the use of SSRI antidepressants and violent behavior. And there's already been a number of these mass murders where it's been confirmed that the killers were currently using SSRI medication. It's also worth noting that these same medications are required by the FDA to carry a label warning that their use may increase suicidal tendencies. It would be foolish to pretend that SSRIs aren't contributing to this problem. But let's go a little deeper. Why is it that more and more people are driven to taking these medications in the first place? Why is it that suicide is now America's #1 cause of death by injury? Is the problem video games, as Wayne LaPierre and the NRA would have you believe? Come on, seriously? Maybe, just maybe, more and more kids are falling into depression and then lashing out at society because people aren't raising their kids. Maybe the problem isn't video games and movies. Maybe the problem is that your kids are being raised by that television because you were never around. Maybe these kids are lashing out because they're desperate for attention, because you never gave it to them, because you had something better to do, because you had higher priorities. And maybe they act out in such a dramatic way because they know that our media will give them their 15 minutes of fame if they do. It seems to me that people would rather blame an inanimate object for the problem rather than look at just how broken our society really is. Is the people calling for gun control in response? Come on, seriously? How far are we going to take this? Are we going to follow England? Ban pointy kitchen knives for everyone's safety? Ban baseball bats, chains, crowbars, and axes? Where do we stop? When does it sink in that violence is a social problem and that this little experiment of having kids being raised by daycare and the entertainment industry is a total failure? When are people going to be willing to admit the politically incorrect yet ever so obvious fact that people who have no intention of raising their kids have no business having kids? Until that moment arrives, expect to see more of this kind of madness, whether you ban guns or not.